8 million inhabitants is a small country with 4 different languages: German, French, Italian, Romansh, and therefore 4 different cultures. This also has an impact on policies and society. The fundamental policy principles of Switzerland are, as in the US, federalism and direct democracy. In other words, the Confederation works with 26 cantons, those corresponding to your states, but a little bit smaller, and indirectly with 2,400 communes, better known as counties in the US. This means that most processes follow the bottom-up principle. Decisions are based on cooperation between the various stakeholders. This fundamental principle is deeply ingrained in the Swiss political mindset, and it also is a key pillar of the Swiss VPET system, which relies on cooperation between the public and the private sector. This cooperation between the public and the private sector is one of the key features of the Swiss VPET system. Trade and branch associations, as the private part of the partnership, establish training content, and member companies create apprenticeship positions and traineeship positions. The Confederation, as the public partner, strategically manages the VPET system, and the cantons, as the other part of the public partner, are responsible for implementation and for supervision. The labor market orientation is certainly one of the big strengths of the Swiss dual-track VET programs. What does that mean? The competencies that are acquired by learners are based on the actual needs of the host companies that provide them with apprenticeship training. Professional competencies correspond to the actual tasks that holders of VET qualifications will be called upon to perform as qualified professionals. The VPET sector is characterized by a high level of permeability. The principle of no dead-end qualifications enables holders of VET to pursue training also at tertiary levels. This permeability leaves considerable room for individual flexibility in career path. Last but not least, the Swiss VET sector is cost efficient. For companies and professional organizations, playing an active role in the VET sector is not just a long-term investment in the future labor force. By assigning learners to productive tasks, most host companies directly recover the costs of their involvement in apprenticeship training and make a profit by the end of the corresponding VET program. This makes apprenticeship training economically appealing for host companies. It's a very important factor. As already mentioned, the public-private partnership is one of the key features of VPET. There are 3 main partners that each contribute in their own ways to the Swiss system. The Confederation, meaning the ministry, represented by the State Secretariat for Education, Research and Innovation, the cantons, and the private sector, the branch associations and the trade associations. Each of these 3 partners is equally important to the functioning of our system and plays a specific role in the management and in the implementation of the VET system. The Confederation is responsible for strategic planning and development of the entire system. Basically, the series seeks to achieve comparability and transparency, as well as national recognition of qualifications on upper secondary and tertiary level. The Confederation also runs the Swiss Federation Institute for Vocational Education and Training, the SWIVET, which is a national competence center for VPET. The cantons are mainly responsible for supervision of vocational schools and host companies. They run vocational schools, issue VET accreditation to host companies, and provide young people and adults with vocational and career guidance counseling. The private sector is represented by trades and branch associations, as well as their member companies and social partners. These associations are mainly responsible for defining and continuously updating training content. Individual companies also create apprenticeship positions. Classical trade and branch associations develop and update not only education and training programs for tomorrow's labor market, but also organize industry courses and support host companies with marketing for occupations. Trade and branch associations also ensure that training content in VET programs matches the needs of the labor market. Thank you for your attention. This is all from my side. I'll be at your disposal for questions later. Unfortunately, I have to leave after the break. You will, however, have the possibility to talk to my colleagues Sarah Deck and later to Laura Antonelli, both also from the ministry. I already wish you a very successful and interesting visit here in Switzerland, and now pass on to Sarah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joseph. I'm afraid I'll have to stand up. I'm more comfortable when I can stand up. So I'd like to welcome you here as well. It's, as already said, a great honor for us to have you here. And I'm going to go a bit more into depth with our VPAT system. We would be very happy to take questions afterwards at the Q&A session, so if you just like to move them. So you also have this chart in your documentation, where it's a bit bigger, where you can have a better look at it. It's a bit small here. This is our Swiss education system. I'd like to give a short overview over this as a whole. So, as you can see in Switzerland, vocational and professional education and training is fully integrated into the system as a whole. So, VPET is on the left-hand side and general education on the right-hand side. The Swiss system offers numerous training possibilities and qualifications at both upper secondary and tertiary levels. You can see this on the slide. Upper secondary level, which they would roughly correspond to your high schools, and tertiary level would be colleges and universities, just to get an approximate idea of where we are. So this is the vocational education and training side of our system. It's on upper secondary, high school level, professional education training, tertiary level, then on the right-hand side, general education part, also on upper secondary level, and universities. Oh, that was a bit fast. And we have academic and applied sciences there. So, we draw a distinction between vocational education and training, as I said, on upper secondary level, and professional education training on tertiary level. And both systems complement one another, so you can start on vocational education training on the lower level and then continue to tertiary level professional education training, where you have numerous opportunities for very interesting careers. And both levels, why is this? I'm really sorry. Both levels of training in the VPET system are very important in terms of both ensuring adequate numbers of skilled workers for the Swiss economy, and also, as Joseph already said, both parts enjoy high prestige in Switzerland, so it's a very attractive career opportunity for young people to choose from. I now would like to show you what youngsters generally choose in Switzerland. So 2/3 of all youngsters coming out of general education at the age of 15 years of age choose a profession. So they're really young and then make this choice very independently and very consciously. The most popular occupations, the 10 most popular occupations are commercial employee. I guess this is what you're probably doing. No, you're not. Oh yeah, you're an IT specialist, exactly. They will come. Retail employee, healthcare worker, and social care worker. They both have very high responsibility in their job. So a healthcare worker would typically go and draw blood from a patient even during their apprenticeships when they're 15, 16, 17 years of age. Then we have electricians, cooks, IT specialists, draftsman, mechanical engineer, and automotive mechanic. So as you can see, there's a broad range of vocational qualifications to choose from. All in all, there are 250 different occupations to choose from at that level of education. And as you can also see, there are white-collar and blue-collar occupations to choose from. So it's not only blue-collar jobs that you get when you're doing that. I think this is very important. The programs typically last between 2 and 4 years, and the apprentices get a nationally recognized qualification once they qualify. I think this is also very important. So you can do your diploma somewhere in the French-speaking part, and it's equally valuable in the German-speaking part at the other end of Switzerland. Not that Switzerland is so big, but nevertheless. And these qualifications would represent a national standard that is known to everybody in the branch or in the French. I think this is also quite important. Joseph already talked about it. Permeability is a very important factor, I think, for the success of our VPAT system. I just like to go a bit more into detail. So one of the big qualifications you can get is a federal VET diploma. This is the 10 occupations I just showed you before. This is the key for direct entry into the labor market. So once the youngsters have done this kind of training, they will go directly into the labor market, and they generally don't have difficulties finding a job. They're highly sought after on the labor market. You can afterwards, usually people would work for a few years on their job, get additional security in what they do and experience, and afterwards they have the possibility to go on to tertiary level professional education and training. So they can do a professional college course, or they can do these examinations on tertiary level that would either enable them to hold a managerial position or to be an expert in their field, or also to have their own business and have employees who they're responsible for. So this is the VET side. There is the possibility to take a VET baccalaureate after the VET diploma. This is a course where you get additional general education that afterwards enables you to go to the general education part of the system. You should not divide it like this, but it's easier. You can then go to the University of Applied Science, where you can take a bachelor's degree. Usually people take a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. There is also the possibility to do that baccalaureate. You would then have to take an aptitude test, and if you're successful, you can then go to university or Federal Institute of Technology, which correspond to the normal universities you know in America. So As an example, somebody could train as a mechanical engineer, do a baccalaureate, decide that medicine is in fact what he really or she really wants to do, enroll in a university, take medical courses, and graduate as a medical doctor. This is possible. It also happens. Rarely, but it does. Of course, the other way around is also possible. So you can do a general education career pathway, you do a baccalaureate, you decide that you'd rather work on something more hands-on because you don't like it. You have to do an internship in a field that corresponds to where you want to study afterwards, and then you can also do studies at universities of applied sciences. I now would like to go a bit more into depth when it comes to the labor market orientation of our dual-track vet system, and I'd like to explain what dual-track means. So most of the vet that is offered, also the professional education in Switzerland, is a dual-track approach. There are about 10% that are school-based courses that are offered. So it means that you have a combination of practice and theory. On this slide, you can see the structure a bit. So youngsters would usually sit in the host company for 3 to 4 days a week. They work there, they do productive work, they have responsibility, they need to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning, they work on their own. They're instructed, of course, they're guided, but they're very, very independent in their work. Then they have classroom instructions, 1 to 2 days a week. It depends a bit on the programs that youngsters would choose, where they have general education topics like math and languages, etc., where they just get the theory for what they do in the company afterwards. What we also have in the practice down there are these industry courses. Because even if you train as a cook in different companies, you would maybe get a bit different knowledge. So the industry courses serve to kind of give knowledge to everybody so that they're on an equal level, and they get additional training maybe on machines that are too big for certain companies to have, or it depends also a bit on the course you take. What is, I think, interesting and important, and I don't know if you have already heard of the Apprenticeship 2000 program that Father runs in the US. It's important that those things run in parallel. So youngsters get classroom instruction that they afterwards transfer directly into the host companies. This is very important for them. They see the use of what they learn. So also in Switzerland, or always in Switzerland, these courses have been running parallel. Check if I told you everything I wanted. Yeah, very important. So the learning process in the host company is guided by experienced apprenticeship trainers and by teachers at the vocational school. So generally speaking, both apprenticeship trainers and vocational school teachers also continue work in their company. So they're not away from the labor market. They know what they're teaching to the youngsters. This is very important. At the same time, both these trainers and teachers undergo pedagogy and didactics courses. So it's a must for them to follow these courses so that they can take care of the youngsters they train. Again, something we've already heard about a bit by Joseph. The definition of the training content is a task that is mainly done by the training branch associations. The government just oversees this process. So the means of directly asking the people in the field what do you need allows qualifications to be highly market relevant. This is extremely important. So the private sector determines the training content directly. This happens through these training branch associations, and they're responsible for developing training content and provide support to their member companies in DPET matters. So the single training companies are not usually involved in defining the content. These are representatives of these single companies that sit in a third partner body, so to speak. These are these professional organizations that we directly interact with. I think this is very important. So it's not one single company like, I don't know, we have a huge telecommunications company, Swisscom. I think we're going to visit them. So it's not Swisscom that defines what their apprentices need to know. It's the association as a whole that decides what their apprentices need to be able to do at the end of their training. And sometimes this takes years, literally, to define this content. But it's a very important process. And it's regularly updated as well, the curriculum, so that people get the latest knowledge. So the trade and branch associations define this content, and the state only gives the final stamp of approval and therefore grants the national recognition of this qualification. So this is the work of the state. So in other words, the content of these qualifications is determined by the actors who are familiar with the needs of the mother company, and they make a thorough analysis of the current occupational activities and developments before they start developing these training contents. I think this is one of the very interesting slides from my point of view. It's about the employability of people coming out of VET and PET courses. So this high level of labor market orientation that we have just seen stems from the curricula drawing. This allows people coming out of the programs to have jobs very directly. So they have very high employment prospects, and because also the qualifications are very high. And the people in Switzerland are familiar with this. So people know that a person with a VET qualification has a good standard. This is known. So if we, for example, is this working? Yes. So if you look here at the vocational education and training, if people come out with a VET certificate, so this is high school, baccalaureate and VET qualifications are roughly high school qualifications. So when they come out there, they have an extremely high employability rate. So 83% of youngsters with a VET diploma, they are directly employed. Sometimes they can stay in the host company where they did their apprenticeships, but very often also they change because they want to see something else. And this is not a problem for Swiss companies. So they train because they find it their social responsibility to train, and because they want qualified workers. So it might be that you train somebody, this person leaves, but you get somebody else who's coming with other ideas, with other knowledge, which companies find very enriching. So you can also see that up here we have the professional education and training qualifications on tertiary level. Also mostly dual track based because people work and train at the same time, and those are university and University of Applied Sciences qualifications. So you can see that the two populations of these trainees have roughly the same employability, which I find very interesting. So it's not graduates from universities that have a higher employability. On the contrary, it's vice versa. The funding of the VPET system. I think the ambassador already told you a little bit about this morning. I'm going to continue. I hope I'm not going to repeat everything. So, maintaining such a differentiated education system is rather costly. So, the public sector contributes accordingly. You can see 60% are paid by the private sector, 30% by the cantons, and 10% by the confederation. So the public sector pays 40% of overall costs, which is cost efficient in a way to say for the public sector. So the public and the private sector share the costs of VPET, and that's why it's considered a public-private partnership, as we've heard before. The remaining 60% that is not taken up by the public sector is paid by the private sector. That's the trade associations, the host companies, and the candidates preparing for professional education and training qualifications. So they have to pay for their qualifications themselves. What is interesting, I guess, for you now is why is the private sector paying 60% of this? And there's an obvious answer to this in Switzerland. This is a model based on Swiss truth. So this is not, for example, in Germany this works differently, even though they have a dual track system as well. So host companies derive a direct net benefit from their involvement here in apprenticeship training because learners produce or perform productive tasks in the host company while they're trained. So for the entire duration of their apprenticeship, they're working in the host company. As training progresses, the cost of training decreases and the productivity increases. So you have a productive output. Of course, we have to be honest, there are also companies that do not recover their investment directly whilst or during the apprenticeship. So they have a net financial loss from their involvement in apprenticeships. But most of those companies keep the apprentices afterwards. So they don't have recruitment costs. The people they would have to hire, they would have to be trained into their company. This is not the case with apprentices, so they can start work directly. So they usually recover the costs after the apprenticeship is finished. And I think this is a very interesting chart. I'm sure Stefan Walter is going to talk about this. You will see him later on. He's the expert on this. It's going to be very interesting. So now, we have a very well-functioning VPET system, but there are challenges, and I think it's only fair that we mention them. So, a labor market-oriented VPET system is evidently changing constantly. So the labor market situation changes, the prevailing conditions change, so the system has to change with these demographic or whatever changes. So we had a decrease in the number of youngsters coming out of general education, which led to the situation that we had more apprenticeship places on offer than apprentices to fill them. For some branches, this is not an ideal position because they really depend on these young people and on good educated young people. So at the same time, the need for qualified labor remains strong and greater demands are being placed in many branches in terms of the competences that workers must possess. So we see that in some branches there are not enough apprentices. In other branches, like commercial employees, there are a lot of people, youngsters, that would like to enter an apprenticeship like this. And if you have really good marks at general education, you might get a place. If you don't, you might not. So this is a bit difficult, but it's an open market. So it runs without, without constraints from the government. And what we have also had is we've had experienced rather severe structural changes in the Swiss economy due to technological developments and global trends, and also due to the financial crisis. So this resulted in a situation where young, talented people who like to enter VET qualifications are both rare and very high in demand. What we have also experienced, I think we need to be very honest about this, is that VET generally enjoys a high reputation in Switzerland, but we see that there is a slight trend towards academization. So with the demographic change, with more foreign people in the country that are used to a more academic system that places a higher value on the academic system, we also see it's difficult to to tell parents that an apprenticeship is a valuable career for their kid, where they sometimes find, I would like my kid to go to college or university. So you have to kind of inform people that that is maybe something a bit different in our country than in other countries, and that you have a high degree of permeability. You can still study in a few years' time. So this is a bit of a challenge as well. Also, education becoming more and more internationalized, so mobility in the labor market is increasing. Foreign companies are establishing headquarters in Switzerland, also American companies, by the way, and we're very happy they do. And those companies would not normally know apprenticeships or vocational education or professional education training, and we kind of like to convince them that this is a very valuable option to have qualified youngsters working in their companies, which is not always so easy. But having you here gives us great hope that this is going to change. For sure, we see big changes in the US, apprenticeships coming up as an important topic, and we surely hope, where is my colleague Zach? Yeah, we surely hope to change this in Switzerland as well with our program. So, I just would like to give a very quick summary over what I've said to maybe just highlight the most important points again. We have the strengths of the Swiss VEPT system, and this results in certain outputs. Please, this is simplified. This is not how the system works. This is very simplified, but it just gives a good overview. So the labor market orientation we have coming from this public-private partnership and from the way the curricula are established, the permeability in the system where there are no dead ends, where people can change from the academic to the VPET and from the VPET to the academic side, just makes the system very flexible. And also, an important aspect we have neither of us touched upon is the quality. So all parts of the system are highly quality assured, and this is also a task that is shared by the private sector and everybody involved in the system. The government is not imposing any quality limits or whatever to the people offering apprenticeships. We're just setting guidelines and we're controlling them. We're not setting any restraints. So these are the strengths of this VEPT system in Switzerland. The outputs we have from this is that we have a very good mix of skills and credits in Switzerland, where we can fill a lot of open positions. I think this is very important. We have a low youth unemployment. This is surely not only due to the system, but it is also due to the system. We have a high competitiveness. Switzerland has been very proud to be ranked highly on the innovation rankings of the European Union, which we are not part of, but we rank there, usually on the first place. So we see that also small and medium enterprises that are highly medic affiliated or tech affiliated, that are very complicated little organizations. They have apprentices and they train them and they have new ideas. So this goes into the competitiveness and innovation capacity of Switzerland. And of course, the career prospects and lifelong learning are another output of our system. So if I was bored with my job here at CERI, I could go and try to have a career in professional education and training. So this would be possible in a sector that I like. This really enables people to not have any dead ends. I find this is so important, and they're attractive careers. So this was all from the information side. I'm just going to make a little ad for our International VPET Congress that is taking place this year in Winterthur in June. I'm not sure if you know, but there is a very nice anecdote. In 2016, we had the second lady, Dr. Jill Biden, in Winterthur. She gave a very inspiring speech, and this kind of, I think, started our cooperation with the United States. So we're of course glad to see as many of you as can come to Winterthur. It's going to be an interesting congress. The topic is From Skills to Prosperity, Sharing Elements of Success. So whilst we're going into this bilateral cooperation, we also see what elements can be transferred, what elements cannot. So sure you're finding a lot of interesting people to connect and network. Just last but not least, this is our new campaign for awareness raising in Switzerland. Topic is permeability, as you can see. Train as a mechanical engineer, become a dental technician. There are loads of them, they're really funny. We've had very good feedback from all over Switzerland on those. And yeah, we're hoping to look into this also in our cooperation with the US on how to raise public awareness. So thank you very much for your attention, and we're now all very happy to take